In the silent darkness between galaxies, one man carried Earth's hope, and the aliens he sought peace with turned him into ash. His execution ignited a war humanity never wanted, but one it was now destined to win. What began as a diplomatic mission became a 3-year storm of blood, vengeance, and impossible courage, a war that would rewrite the fate of 2 civilizations forever. The Meridian Dawn drifted through the abyss like a lone spark moving toward a sleeping volcano. For Ambassador Daniel Hayes, the sight outside the viewport was both mesmerizing and terrifying. Stars glimmered like distant candles, but ahead lay something far more menacing. Vorak Prime, heart of the oldest empire in known space. Humanity had spent centuries fighting itself, but only the last generation exploring the stars. The Vorak, however, had ruled entire sectors for 10 millennia. Their ships patrolled the dark like predatory beasts. Their laws crushed species without mercy. And now Daniel was expected to walk into their throne room with nothing but hope and words. At 53, Daniel carried the weight of Earth on his shoulders. Calm eyes, silver-threaded hair. Posture straight as a soldier, but his hands trembled ever so slightly as he gripped the armrest. Peace was a fragile thing, easily shattered by arrogance or fear. Laura Mitchell, his aide, stepped into the observation deck. 6 hours until arrival, sir, she said. Final checks are complete. Daniel tried to smile. Good. I suppose this is our last quiet moment. Laura was young, brilliant, and brave enough to stand beside him on a mission no one else wanted. She had memorized every protocol, every cultural signal that could offend a Vorak, but even she couldn't hide her unease. We'll get through this, she said. We have to, Daniel replied softly. A third figure joined them. Dr. Christopher Vance, the foremost expert on Vorak culture. 20 years of study had not made him optimistic. They do not see us as diplomats, he warned. They see us as experiments that learn to speak. Daniel nodded, already knowing this. Then we will show them something unexpected. Hours later, the Meridian Dawn dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The view transformed instantly and violently. Vorak Prime filled the screen. A massive world of obsidian stone and crimson deserts, wrapped in swirling toxic clouds. Enormous warships orbited it like armored sharks circling prey. Space stations bristled with weapons capable of turning mountains into vapor. A growling voice burst through comms. Human vessel, follow the route we transmit. Leave it by even a hair, and you will be erased. Daniel responded calmly. We come in peace. A pause, then a sound disturbingly close to a laugh. Then die peacefully if you lie. The Meridian Dawn descended to the surface. The landing platform was surrounded by hundreds of tall, reptilian Vorak soldiers. 8-foot giants, armored in natural scales harder than steel. Their eyes, slit in yellow, carried not hatred, but disdain, as if humans were simply beneath notice. Daniel stepped out first. Laura and Christopher followed. A Vorak officer approached, towering over Daniel like a living monolith. You are the human representative, he stated, not asked. I am Daniel Hayes of the United Earth Government. Daniel replied with dignified calm. I bring gifts and goodwill. The officer hissed a mocking sound. Your presence is amusing. They were escorted into the capital. Massive spires of black stone stretched toward the dark red sky. Banners displaying the Vorak Dominion symbol, a claw crushing a star, fluttered from every tower. Citizens stopped to stare. Some sneered. Others recoiled as if humans carried disease. Daniel walked as though every pair of hostile eyes was irrelevant. Inside the High Council chamber, 7 thrones dominated the far end of an impossibly large hall. At the center sat Drethnak, the High Counselor, ancient cracked scales, but eyes filled with cold calculation. Daniel bowed, not deeply. Respect without submission. High Counselor, he said, voice steady. Humanity extends a hand of friendship. He presented a gift, a preserved earth flower sealed in ancient amber, millions of years old. Drethnak leaned forward slightly, a rare sign of interest. Pretty words, pretty token, pretty lie. Daniel breathed carefully, choosing his response. But he never got the chance. Vorak guards seized him instantly. Laura cried out as she was grabbed. Christopher struggled until a blow dropped him unconscious. "What is the meaning?" Daniel roared. Drefnak descended from his throne like a descending avalanche. "You enter our space without permission. You touch our stars uninvited. Humanity spreads like rot across the void." He leaned so close Daniel could feel his breath. "You live because we tolerated it. Now we correct the mistake." Daniel was dragged away. Laura's screams echoed through the chamber. The next morning, the Vorak gathered by the thousands. A tribunal was held, a performance, not a trial. Charges of espionage, contagion, conspiracy, all invented. The verdict was predetermined. Death by disintegration. Daniel was forced to his knees before a weapon humming with lethal energy. Cameras broadcast the moment across the Dominion. He rose to his feet anyway. "No fear, no surrender," he said. "Earth will remember this. And you will learn what humans do to those who murder our own." A flash. Ambassador Daniel Hayes vanished into dust. From her cell, Laura watched, tears streaking her cheeks, but something else burning in her eyes. Not grief. Resolve. Humanity had come seeking peace. They would return with something else. The meridian dawn returned to Earth in silence, a silence so heavy that even the hum of its engines felt like mourning. For 14 days, Laura Mitchell barely slept. Every time exhaustion forced her eyes closed, the flash of Daniel Hayes being erased filled her mind. His last words replayed like a vow she was obligated to fulfill. "Earth will remember this." She repeated those words until they carved themselves into her bones. On the 15th day, the ship touched down at the United Nations Spaceport in Geneva. The landing pad was surrounded by security, diplomats, and military personnel. They had expected Daniel Hayes to walk out first with news of peace, or at the very least negotiations. Instead, Laura stepped out carrying a small data drive. Christopher Vance came after her, head wrapped in bandages, eyes dark with exhaustion and horror. Secretary General Maria Santos approached with hope flickering in her expression. "Where's Ambassador Hayes?" she asked. Laura didn't speak. She simply placed the data drive into the Secretary General's hands. The look in her eyes, hollow, burning, unbroken, said everything. Within an hour, the recorded execution was played inside the United Earth Council chamber. 50 global leaders, from presidents to premiers to chancellors and monarchs, sat around the circular hall as the horror unfolded on the massive display. Daniel's humiliation, Drefnak's declaration, the accusations, the fabricated trial, and finally, the weapons flash extinguishing a man who had asked only for peace. When the recording ended, no one spoke. Not for a long time. It was President Nathan Brooks of North America who finally broke the silence. His voice was controlled, but beneath it lay a storm. "They gave us 30 days, he said. 30 days to abandon every colony we built. 30 days to retreat to our home system, like frightened animals." He looked around at the others. "And after that 30 days, they will still come for us." Premier Jiangwei of China leaned forward. "We cannot defeat them in war. Their fleets dwarf ours. Their technology surpasses ours by centuries." Prime Minister Almomar Alkonquo of Africa shook his head slowly. "If we surrender today, we surrender forever. They will carve humanity apart world by world. The Vorak do not leave survivors. They leave warnings." The debate exploded. Surrender, resistance, evacuation, hiding. Everyone spoke except Laura. She sat still, staring at the table, Daniel's final words echoing through her skull. Her hands shook. Her breath trembled. 1,000 emotions churned inside her. Grief, rage, helplessness, and something like fire. When the room finally fell silent again, she stood. "Secretary General," she said quietly. "May I speak?" Maria Santos nodded. Laura stepped into the center of the chamber. She no longer looked like an aide. She looked like a witness to something too horrific to ever forget. "I watched Daniel Hayes die," she began. "Every leader watched her closely. I watched him refuse to kneel. I watched him stand tall even when his death had already been decided." She took a breath, steadying her voice. "He did not beg. He did not break. He looked him in the eyes and made a promise on behalf of all of us. She repeated Daniel's final words slowly, clearly. Earth will remember this. She looked around the room, at the powerful people who now looked powerless. I do not know if he believed those words when he spoke them, she continued, but I believe them now, and I believe every one of you does too. No one argued. We tried peace, Laura said. We reached out with hope. They answered with murder. This war is not something we chose, but it is the only answer left to us. The room was still, heavy, waiting. It was President Brooks who finally nodded. She is right. Premier Jiangwei closed his eyes, as though accepting a burden he'd hoped never to carry. Slowly, he nodded as well. One by one, every leader lowered their resistance. At midnight, the vote was cast. Unanimous. Earth would not surrender. Earth would fight. For 3 days, the planet fell into absolute silence. No broadcasts. No announcements. No movements from the colonies. The Vorak believed humanity was paralyzed by fear, collapsing under the weight of its own terror. But behind that silence, a storm was forming. Factories halted consumer production and shifted to weapons manufacturing. Armies mobilized. Shipyards blazed with activity. Every scientist, engineer, and builder was reassigned. Admiral Catherine Cole, legendary architect of Earth's defense fleet, took command of the mobilization. At 62, she was as relentless as the steel she commanded. We cannot defeat them head-on, she said in the war briefing. They outnumber us. They outgun us. They have centuries of experience. General Samuel Price frowned. Then what do we do? Admiral Cole's eyes hardened. We stop playing by their rules. She laid out a plan built on speed, unpredictability, and tactics no alien empire had ever seen from a young species. Then she turned to the head of advanced research, Dr. Benjamin Park. He stepped forward, pale, nervous, brilliant. You now lead the most important scientific program in human history. Catherine said, find a way to hurt them. Find every weakness they don't know they have. Benjamin stared at the requirements and blanched. This is impossible. Admiral Cole leaned in, voice cold as vacuum. Ambassador Hayes believed peace was possible. He was wrong. Now I am asking you to do the impossible, and you will not disappoint me. Benjamin nodded, fear and determination mixing in his eyes. On the 4th day after the decision, President Brooks appeared on every screen on Earth. His speech was not angry, not loud, but steady, firm, unbreakable. For days ago, he said, the Vorak murdered Ambassador Daniel Hayes. They mocked us. They ordered us to kneel. He leaned forward. We do not kneel. He spoke of humanity's history, surviving ice ages, plagues, wars, and extinction threats. We are not primitives. We are not insects. And we do not forget those who harm our own. His final words ignited a fire that tore through the world. To the Vorak Dominion, you wanted our surrender. Instead, we are coming for you. Across Earth, billions felt the same spark ignite inside them. The great mobilization had begun, and humanity, once underestimated, was about to become the galaxy's greatest nightmare. Humanity did not roar into war, it exploded. Admiral Catherine Cole worked 20-hour days, sleeping only when her body forced her. Her command center, buried deep beneath the Atlantic, glowed with maps, simulations, and endless streams of data. Every screen, every hologram, every calculation revolved around one objective: hit the Vorak before they can understand what we have become. The Vorak believed war had one rhythm: slow, methodical, predictable. They fought with enormous fleets like ancient empires marching armies across open plains. Humanity had no intention of playing by those ancient rules. Within months, 148 warships were ready, a miracle by every scientific and industrial measure. The fleet was leaner, faster, more flexible than anything the Vorak possessed. Every vessel was redesigned to fight like predators, not prey. And at the heart of this transformation stood a single invention, the one weapon that changed everything. Dr. Benjamin Park, after weeks of near madness and sleepless nights, burst into Admiral Cole's office with eyes wide and trembling hands. I have it, he whispered. The Admiral took the datapad from him. One scan was enough. She looked up. Dr. Park, you just rewrote warfare. The plasma lance array, a weapon humans had never attempted before, could pierce Vorak armor like soft clay. And his second creation, the quantum disruption field, was even more devastating. A system that scrambled Vorak shield matrices, rendering their ships defenseless for precious seconds. Seconds were enough. Seconds were everything. Within a week, Earth shipyards were installing the new systems across the entire fleet. The human fleet rises. 6 months after Daniel Hayes' execution, the fleet assembled at the edge of Earth's moon, a shimmering wall of steel and purpose. Admiral Cole stood aboard the dreadnought Retribution, the largest warship in human history. A vessel so new the paint had barely dried. Her crew stood ready, weapons primed, engines humming like war drums. And among the officers at her side was Lieutenant Laura Mitchell. She no longer wore the attire of an aide. She wore armor now, the dark blue uniform of Earth Defense, with Daniel Hayes' insignia pinned beneath her collar, a symbol, a promise, a ghost she refused to let die. The communications officer spoke. Admiral, all ships confirm readiness. Catherine Cole nodded once. Open a fleet-wide channel. A soft chime echoed. Every captain, every soldier, every pilot listened. Admiral Cole spoke with the calm determination of a woman who had already decided she would die if she must. 3 years ago, they murdered a man who asked only for peace. They thought that would break us. They forgot who we are. Silence. Attention. Breath held across 100 decks. We are humanity, born in storms, shaped by struggle, driven by hope. We will not kneel. We will not hide. We will not vanish quietly into the dark. Her eyes shifted to the stars. Somewhere, past the glittering void, lay the enemy. Our mission is simple. Strike fast. Strike hard. Show the Vorak what humans do when pushed to the edge. She raised her hand. All ships, initiate the first jump. A ripple of blue light danced across the fleet. Then 148 ships vanished into faster-than-light travel. The battle at Catherine IDH. At the border of Vorak space sat a fortress. Catherine IDH, one of the Dominion's largest military outposts. An armored titan protected by 300 warships and tens of thousands of soldiers. Its commander, Warlord Sethek, had never known defeat. His confidence was unshakable. When sensors detected the human fleet emerging from jump space, he felt amusement rather than alarm. How many? He asked casually. 147 warships, Warlord, all small by our standards. Sethek laughed a rough, grating laugh of a predator who has spotted prey. They think they can challenge us with toys. Prepare the fleet. We will erase them. Vorak warships surged forward, massive hulks of dark metal, engines flaring red, weapons glowing like open wounds. Inside the Retribution, alarms blared softly. Laura Mitchell's heart hammered in her chest. They're coming, she reported. Admiral Cole folded her hands behind her back, expression unreadable. Let them come. The Vorak expected a traditional battle line, slow ships aligning for a massive exchange of fire. That expectation lasted 3 seconds. Execute pattern Delta, Admiral Cole ordered. The human fleet scattered like a meteor shower, each ship accelerating in unpredictable bursts, weaving patterns no Vorak targeting computer could follow. Sethek snarled. What are they doing? His tactical officers shook their head, overwhelmed. Their movement makes no sense. The Vorak opened fire anyway, thousands of missiles and beams streaking through space. They hit nothing, not one human ship. The counterattack was immediate and vicious. The frigate Wolves. Commander Timothy North led the first strike. His 20 fast-attack frigates dove straight into the Vorak lines like wolves breaking into a herd. All wings, target engines, he shouted. Blind them. His squadron sliced through the enemy formation, firing precise bursts that tore through engines, sensors, exposed plates. Every weakness Dr. Park had identified. Explosions blossomed across the enemy fleet like dying stars. Behind them came Captain Stephanie Reyes' cruisers. Her voice was calm, almost cold. Activate the quantum field. For the first time in history, Vorak shields flickered, then collapsed. Fire. 40 plasma lances opened up at once. Vorak armor evaporated. Cruisers melted open. Warlord Sethic's confidence shattered. In 1 hour, 30 Vorak ships were destroyed. Human losses, 0. The Vorak tried to regroup. They tried to retaliate. They tried to aim. But the humans refused to fight like any enemy the Dominion had ever known. Fast, unpredictable, merciless. Panic rippled through the Vorak ranks. Sethic's voice trembled as he roared. All ships, retreat, retreat. For the first time in 10,000 years, a Vorak fleet retreated from battle. Humanity had drawn blood, and the galaxy felt the tremor, the message that shook a empire. Admiral Cole did not chase them. She didn't need to. Instead, she sent a message on every Dominion channel. Her voice was calm, measured, deadly. You murdered our ambassador. You threatened our people. You called us primitives. She paused. Now you have seen what primitives can do. Silence hung across the galaxy. To the High Council of Vorak Prime, she said, You started this war with murder. Her eyes hardened. We will end it with victory. The transmission ended, and the storm began. The victory at Catherine ITH shook the galaxy like a fault line finally snapping. Across Vorak space, shock rippled through systems that had previously believed humans were little more than soft-skinned, short-lived newcomers to the stars. But after that battle, humanity became a threat, a terrifying new force that the Dominion had never anticipated. While the Vorak reeled in disbelief, Earth moved with purpose. The great mobilization begins. The triumph was celebrated globally. Cheers, tears, hope. But behind Admiral Catherine Cole's stern eyes, no celebration took root. The Admiral sat alone in her dim quarters aboard Retribution, reviewing casualty reports. 12 human ships lost. Nearly 3,000 men and women gone. She whispered their names quietly, one after another, honoring each life the way a soldier honors fallen family. Laura Mitchell found her there, the door sliding open silently. Admiral, she said softly, you haven't slept. Cole didn't look up. Victory feels heavier than defeat when it comes with this many dead. Laura stepped closer. We showed the galaxy we won't kneel. Cole finally raised her gaze. Her eyes were heavy with experience. We showed the Vorak how much we're willing to lose. That worries me more than anything. Laura didn't flinch. We didn't start this war, but we're going to finish it. The Admiral gave a single, slow nod. Yes, and we'll finish it on our terms. Year 1, shadows and strategy. The next months were a storm of battles, not grand, glorious clashes, but sharp, surgical strikes designed to cripple the Dominion piece by piece. Admiral Cole refused to let the Vorak regroup. Her fleet hit fuel depots, communication outposts, orbital supply rings, secondary stations, tertiary stations, hidden caches buried beneath asteroid belts. Humanity became a ghost-moving war machine, appearing, striking, disappearing. The Vorak were used to fighting giants. Humans fought like ghosts. By the end of the first year, 47 Vorak outposts had fallen. Half had been destroyed, half captured, and turned into human bases. But heroes and tragedies began to emerge in equal measure. Captain Andrew Blake, the Defender. Captain Andrew Blake commanded the cruiser Defiant. He was a quiet man with the focus of a surgeon and the instincts of a wolf. His ship became legendary in the 3rd month of the war. At Vorak Secondary, Blake's cruiser was ambushed, cut off from the main fleet by a trap laid with surgical precision. 20 Vorak ships closed in. Retreat was impossible. Backup was days away. Evacuation meant death for the civilians his ship was escorting. Blake made his choice instantly. We hold, he told his crew. Sir, we can't. We hold. What followed became the most talked-about stand of the early war. For 11 days, the Defiant fought alone, its hull shredded, engines barely functional, shields gone. Half the crew died. Blake suffered 12 wounds but refused to leave the bridge. On the 12th day, rescue arrived, finding Blake still standing, still giving orders, still refusing to yield. His first officer recalled, The ship was dying. We told him. Blake's response became a symbol carved on recruitment posters. Then we'd die with it, but not before we take a few more of them with us. Earth didn't forget that moment. Neither did the Vorak. Year or two, the Dominion strikes back. By the second year, the Vorak finally adapted. Their arrogance faded as fear crept into cracks of their empire. They studied human tactics. They adjusted their formations. They rewrote centuries-old doctrines. And they built countermeasures. When the Vorak learned that human plasma lances were melting their armor, they reinforced core plates. When they realized the quantum disruption field was disabling their shields, they modified their shield algorithms. But humans adapted again. They always adapted. This time, Dr. Nicole Tran stepped into history. Tran, a physicist who had lost her brother in the early battles, developed something both brilliant and horrifying. The Quantum Disruption Field Mark II, a system that didn't just disable shields, it destabilized their entire power grid. The first time it was used, at the Crimson Nebula, 30 Vorak destroyers crumbled in minutes. The Dominion tried to steal the technology. They dissected captured ships. They tortured prisoners. They ran simulations for weeks. But they couldn't replicate it. The science was too foreign, too human. Anger swelled across the Dominion. Orders were barked. Brutality increased. Entire sectors were punished for rumors of disloyalty. But cracks were forming in the Empire. Humanity made sure of it. On the ground, the Bear of Texas, Sergeant Major Eric Daniels fought, not in space, but on burning worlds. A mountain of a man from Texas. Fists like stone, heart like fire. Where he went, the battlefield bent around him. He liberated camps holding alien species, enslaved by the Vorak for centuries. Civilians whispered his name like a rising legend. But his most famous moment came at Thorn Ridge. Daniels and his company, 200 soldiers, were surrounded by 2,000 Vorak infantry. No air support, no reinforcements, no retreat. A young private asked shakily, "Sir, what do we do?" Daniels loaded his rifle, eyes burning like a forge. "We do what humans always do, son. We fight until we can't fight anymore." He racked a bolt. "And then we fight some more." They held the ridge for 3 brutal days. When reinforcements arrived, 47 humans remained. Every one of them had killed at least 20 Vorak. The Dominion learned something terrifying that day. Humans didn't break. They broke their enemies. Year 3, the Empire cracks. By the 3rd year, rebellions were spreading across Vorak territory. Species that had been enslaved for centuries finally saw a chance. They rose. They fought. They joined humanity's cause. The Dominion was no longer just fighting humans. They were fighting a galaxy no longer afraid of them. At the top of the collapsing empire, High Counselor Drefnak watched his Dominion crumble, and the fear he'd mocked humans for now lived in him. He summoned his generals. There must be a way to end this war. General Krivo stepped forward, voice grave. "There is one weapon we have never used. The cleansing protocol. A weapon designed millennia ago, capable of erasing an entire star system." Drefnak hesitated only once. Target Earth. The Vorak believed this would end humanity. Instead, it set the stage for the final, greatest battle in galactic history. High Counselor Drefnak stood before a hologram of Earth, a blue gem floating in the darkness, and felt something he had never experienced in his centuries of rule: desperation. For 3 years, humanity had torn to the Dominion like wildfire burning through ancient wood. Every treaty world lost. Every stronghold weakened. Every fleet beaten back. The Vorak, who had believed themselves eternal, were now watching their empire rot from within. Finally, Drefnak whispered the words that he once vowed would never leave his mouth. "Activate the cleansing protocol." The room fell into stunned silence. Even his generals, forged in the cold heart of Vorak tradition, recoiled. Wiping out a star system was forbidden, not by law, but by something deeper: fear of the ancient wars that almost destroyed the Dominion itself. General Krivos bowed his head. "The weapon still functions, High Counselor, but if we use it, billions will die." Drethnak's reply was a hiss of bitterness. Better their billions than ours. And so the order was given, deep beneath the surface of Vorak Prime, in a vault untouched for 3 millennia. Ancient machines groaned awake. Red lights flickered in dusty corridors. Forgotten engines whirred like the growl of an awakening beast. Earth had 30 days before the weapon fired. 30 days before humanity's home was erased. Not conquered, not enslaved, not occupied, obliterated. The message that changed everything. The warning didn't come from human intelligence. It didn't come from a captured officer or intercepted transmission. It came from a spy belonging to a species the Vorak had enslaved for centuries, a species humanity had liberated on a world called Arioth. The message was simple. The Dominion will destroy your home. You have 30 days. Strike Vorak Prime or lose Earth. When Admiral Catherine Cole received the encrypted packet, her blood turned to ice. She summoned every senior commander aboard the Retribution. The war room filled with officers, captains, strategists, scientists, admirals, all bearing the scars and fatigue of years of fighting. Cold and waste time. They intend to wipe out Earth, she said, using an ancient weapon. It activates in approximately 30 days. The room erupted. What kind of weapon? Can we intercept the shot? Evacuate Earth? Impossible. We have no defenses against that. They'll kill billions. Cole slammed her hand on the table. Enough. Silence fell instantly. Dr. Nicole Tran spoke first. We can't disable something we cannot reach. The weapon is on Vorak Prime, in a vault beneath their high council chambers. General Samuel Price frowned. To get to that vault, we'd have to invade the capital itself. And break through 500 warships, added Captain Reyes, plus planetary defenses, anti-orbital cannons, millions of troops. One commander whispered, "That's suicide." Cole turned slowly to face him. So is doing nothing. The decision of the century. For a moment, no one spoke. The weight of the choice hung over them like a star about to collapse. Finally, Laura Mitchell broke the silence. Her voice was low, but steady, the voice of someone who had already faced death and no longer feared it. If we hesitate, Earth dies, she said. Daniel believed peace was possible. They murdered him for it. If we want his death to mean something, we have to finish what he started. Cole looked at her. Lieutenant, you've given enough. You don't need to volunteer for this. Admiral, Laura replied gently, I'm not volunteering. She placed her hand on the table. I'm going. There was no hesitation in her eyes, only fire. Admiral Cole nodded slowly. Then she looked around the room. All those in favor of attacking Vorak Prime now. Every hand rose. The vote was unanimous. Earth's leaders weren't asked. There was no time for politics. No time for debate. This was war, and war demanded decisions in the dark. Preparation for the final assault. For the next 2 weeks, every human ship, from battered frigates to brand-new cruisers, was recalled from every front. 212 warships, 43 troop carriers, 1 dreadnought. It was the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. Shipyards worked without rest. Engineers repaired hulls, still steaming from battle. Scientists calibrated weapons that had never been tested on this scale. Soldiers trained in zero-G combat drills until they collapsed. This was no longer a war for expansion or defense. This was a war for survival. The fleet converged at the edges of Vorak space. They arrived ship by ship until the darkness was filled with human steel and determination. On the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Cole stood before the tactical display, arms behind her back, the blue lights reflecting off her stern face. The Vorak capital system was a fortress, 500 enemy warships, orbital guns capable of slicing mountains, planetary shields, fighter swarms, legions of ground troops. Every calculation said the same thing. Humanity should lose. Laura stood silently beside her, eyes scanning the data. They'll throw everything they have at us, she said quietly. Cole didn't blink. Good, because we'll throw everything we have back. The speech that shook the fleet. Before the final jump, Admiral Cole opened a channel to all ships. Across hundreds of decks, tens of thousands of soldiers, pilots, and crew members listened as her voice filled every corridor. "This is Admiral Catherine Cole," she began. "In minutes, we will jump directly into Vorak Prime system. We will face the largest armada ever assembled. Many of us will not return." She paused, letting the truth sink in. "But we fight today for something bigger than survival. We fight for our families, our home, our children, our history, our future." Her voice grew firm, almost fierce. "We fight because a good man named Daniel Hayes believed in peace, and because the Vorak murdered him for believing in it. A beat. They wanted us to kneel." She raised her head. "Today we teach them that humanity kneels to no one." A roar echoed through the fleet, thousands of voices shouting as one. Cole raised her hand. "All ships, prepare to jump." The stars stretched. The fleet vanished. Humanity charged toward Vorak Prime, toward the heart of the Empire, toward the battle that would determine the fate of two civilizations. The final war was about to begin. The jump into Vorak Prime system felt like diving from orbit into a raging inferno. The moment the human fleet exited faster than light, alarms screamed across every ship. Space ahead was crowded with death. 500 Vorak warships formed a wall of black metal between the humans and the planet. Massive orbital platforms hovered behind them like steel gods. Their cannons glowed with the power to crack continents. Swarms of fighters streaked across the void like angry sparks. Vorak Prime itself loomed in the center of it all, a monstrous world of obsidian stone, crimson deserts, and storms that glowed like magma beneath toxic clouds. Hell had a home, and humanity had just knocked on its front door. Admiral Catherine Cole didn't blink. "Battle stations," she said calmly. The Retribution's crew surged into motion. Laura Mitchell gripped the edge of her console, heart slamming against her ribs. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times. She thought she would be terrified. Instead, she felt something else. Purpose. Across the fleet, captains saluted their crews. Pilots sealed helmets. Soldiers steadied their breathing. The entire human war machine braced itself for a hopeless fight. Because hopeless or not, they were here, and they weren't leaving until the weapon beneath Vorak Prime's surface was dead. The first strike. The Vorak didn't hesitate. Human fleet detected. Their battlefield AI broadcast across the Dominion's channels. "Engage. No mercy." The first volley came not from ships, but from the orbital platforms. Blue-white beams hotter than the sun lanced across space, tearing through the void with impossible accuracy. 2 human frigates vaporized instantly. Another 5 took direct hits and were torn open like tin. Laura swallowed hard. "Admiral, casualties." "I see them," Cole said, jaw tightening. "Launch countermeasures. All cruisers, advance." Human cruisers surged forward, their hulls gleaming silver against the darkness. Dr. Nicole Tran's invention, the quantum disruption field, activated across the fleet, sending ripples of invisible energy washing over the enemy lines. Vorak shields flickered. Some died entirely. Others pulsed, destabilized. The human frigates, fast as lightning, shot forward. Commander Timothy North led the first wave. Frigate wings, hit their flanks, draw fire from the carriers. Dozens of frigates streaked through space like metallic wolves, diving into a sea of black titans. The Vorak tried to track them. They couldn't. Humanity moved too fast. Timothy's frigate sliced between 2 destroyers, deploying a burst of plasma charges that exploded across their engines. 2 Vorak ships spun out of formation. Jets of fire sprang from ruptured cores. "Nice shooting, wing leader," Cole said over comms. Timothy grinned despite the chaos. "Saving my best tricks for later, Admiral." The cruisers joined the maelstrom. Captain Stephanie Reyes brought her cruisers into the heart of the enemy formation. Her voice echoed across her ship. "All hands, brace for plasma lance ignition. We fire on my mark." Aura blue light gathered along the length of her ship's cannons. 3, 2, 1, mark. A curtain of superheated plasma ripped through the battlefield. Vorak armor, thicker than tanks, forged in furnaces hotter than volcanoes, liquefied under the onslaught. Entire segments of enemy vessels melted in seconds. 5 Vorak cruisers died in the first blast. 8 more in the second. The Dominion reeled. For the first time in their empire's long reign, they realized humans weren't fighting to survive anymore. Humans were fighting to win. The Retribution charges forward. Despite early successes, the human fleet was still wildly outnumbered. Explosions rippled across the battlefield. Human ships vanished in blossoms of fire. Crews screamed over open comms before static swallowed their voices. But every loss pushed the survivors harder. Inside the Retribution, the deck trembled as a Vorak battleship fired a beam across their bow. "Shields down to 60%, a tech officer shouted. "Adjust formation," Admiral Cole ordered. "Cruisers, concentrate fire on Sector 7. I want that battleship gone." The Retribution's bow cannons roared, a thunderous sound even in vacuum, transmitted through steel. The enemy battleship detonated, but another took its place. Laura's voice cut through the chaos. "Admiral, additional reinforcements approaching from the planet's dark side. 80 ships." Cole didn't flinch. "Commander North," she said calmly. "Intercept." Timothy's reply came instantly, unwavering. "Understood." He turned his frigates toward the incoming fleet. 30 against 80. It was suicide. No one questioned it. The descent begins. "Troop carriers, begin your approach." Admiral Cole ordered once a slim corridor had been punched open. On board the carriers, 50,000 soldiers braced as their vessels plunged toward Vorak Prime. Among them was Sergeant Major Eric Daniels, the Bear of Texas. His armor was scarred, scorched, dented, a history of battles etched onto steel. "Listen up." Daniels roared over the roar of the engines. "This is the capital of the Dominion. They'll throw everything at us." "Good. Means we hit the right spot." He slammed a fist into his palm. "Our job is simple. Fight to the capital, reach the High Council chamber, and smash that weapon." A young soldier swallowed. "Sir, what if we fail?" Daniels grinned, a fierce, wild grin. "Then we die trying. But we ain't failing today." The carriers broke through clouds glowing with crimson lightning. Anti-aircraft cannons lit the sky like a storm of white fire. 10 carriers were shredded before they reached the surface. Daniels felt the ship shake violently. "Brace! Brace!" With a bone-shaking crash, the carriers landed on the obsidian landing fields of the capital. The doors blasted open. The battle for Vorak Prime began. The city of chaos. Vorak soldiers surged toward the landing zones, towering reptilian giants wielding crackling energy weapons. The humans met them head-on. Explosions tore through the air. Tanks rolled down alien streets. Snipers took positions on shattered spires. Daniels led the charge, roaring as he fired into the advancing soldiers. "For Earth!" His troops echoed the cry. "For Earth!" Laser fire streaked across the sky. Streets collapsed under the weight of explosions. Smoke filled the air, mixing with a toxic atmosphere. The capital had never seen a battle like this. Humanity had come with one goal: break the Dominion or die trying, and they were willing to do both. The space battle raged above them. The ground war raged below. Time was running out. Beneath the High Council chamber, the cleansing protocol hummed. Earth had less than a day before it fired. The next part begins the push toward the weapon. Vorak Prime was burning. The capital, once a monument of obsidian towers and crimson banners, had become a labyrinth of fire, shattered stone, and smoke so thick it turned the sky into a suffocating veil. Every street echoed with the clash of energy weapons, the thunder of artillery, and the screams of 2 civilizations fighting to determine which one would survive the day. On the ground, humanity was bleeding but advancing. Above, in orbit, the skies were chaos. Human ships weaving through beams of molten light, Vorak cruisers exploding in blossoms of blue flame, and the Retribution carving a path through hell itself. The final battle consumed everything. And deep beneath the High Council chamber, the ancient weapon, the cleansing protocol, hummed louder with every passing hour. If it fired, Earth would cease to exist. Not conquered, not scarred, not damaged, Erased. Streets of ash and blood. Sergeant Major Eric Daniels charged through the ruins with 40 soldiers at his back. Every breath burned in the toxic air. Every corner held another ambush. Every minute, another comrade fell. But Daniels didn't slow. Couldn't slow. Ahead, through the smoke and fire, he saw it, the massive, fortress-like structure that housed the High Council chamber. Its once polished black marble was fractured by bombardment. Its towers cracked and burning like candles melting under their own heat. "Move!" Daniels roared, blasting a Vorak warrior aside with shoulder strike. "We're almost there." The Vorak fought like demons, claws ripping through armor, weapons spitting molten energy. But the humans fought with something else entirely. Desperation, fury, hope. A Vorak soldier lunged at Daniels from the left. Daniels caught him by the throat, slammed him against a broken pillar, and fired point blank. "Next," he growled. Behind him, Private Lien staggered, clutching a bleeding wound. "Sir, the chamber, it's heavily fortified." Daniels reloaded calmly. "Good. Means we won't get bored." The sky falls. Above the battlefield, the Retribution shuddered as another blast struck its hull. Sparks erupted across the bridge. The lights flickered. "Admiral," the tactical officer shouted, "we've lost Cruiser Valis. Emberfall is crippled. North's wing, we've lost contact." Admiral Catherine Cole didn't waver, even as the deck trembled beneath her feet. "Bring us closer to the orbital platforms," she ordered. "If we don't take them down, the ground teams don't stand a chance." Laura Mitchell looked up from her console, voice tight. "Admiral, that puts us directly in the kill zone." "I know," Cole said. The Retribution rotated, engines blazing white-hot as it forced its way toward the deadliest weapons in the system. Massive platforms capable of slicing through destroyers like paper. Laura gripped her chair. "Admiral, with respect." Cole cut her off gently. "Lieutenant, I'm done running from their guns." The Retribution opened fire. Every cannon, every lance, every weapon roaring at once. The orbital platforms returned fire with beams so bright they carved streaks across the dark like burning suns. 2 human cruisers died instantly. Another drifted, aflame and broken, but the platform shields flickered, then died. "Fire again," Cole commanded. The Retribution's lances stabbed through the platform's core. A sun-bright explosion lit up the sky. "One down," Cole said. 3 to go. Humanity wasn't retreating. Humanity was charging. The High Council chamber. Daniels and what remained of his company reached the enormous entrance. 2 colossal doors carved with the history of the Dominion. It was the last barrier between humanity and the weapon. Vorak soldiers poured from every stair, balcony, and archway. Daniels grabbed a grenade, yanked the pin with his teeth, and hurled it into the crowd. For Earth! His troops echoed the cry, storming forward. Bullets and energy bolts tore through the air. 2 humans fell instantly. Daniels roared and kept moving, crushing a Vorak under a collapsed beam as he charged inside. The interior was gigantic. A cathedral of stone and obsidian, pillars rising like black trees toward a vaulted ceiling. Fires climbed the walls. Statues of ancient Vorak warlords lay shattered on the floor. At the far end, standing near his throne, was High Counselor Drethnak. The ancient ruler looked smaller than legend had ever described him, weary, cracked, trembling with fury and fear. "You!" he hissed as Daniels approached. "Your species should never have reached the stars." Daniels leveled his rifle at him. "And you should have left us alone." They stared at each other. One man, one alien, both symbols of civilizations locked in a war. Neither wanted, but neither could escape. Drethnak's weapon shook in his clawed hand. He fired. Daniels dug behind a fallen pillar as molten energy scorched past him. "Fan out!" Daniels commanded. "Don't let him retreat to the vault." His soldiers spread out, exchanging fire with Vorak guards. The chamber became a hurricane of chaos. Daniels rose, sprinted forward, and tackled Drethnak to the floor. The Vorak leader snarled, slashing with his claws, but Daniels slammed a fist into his jaw. Then another, then another. Drethnak collapsed, blood dripping from his broken snout. You lose, Daniel said. The High Counselor trembled, realizing the truth. The Dominion had fallen. His trembling claw released the weapon. It clattered across the floor. He sank to his knees. It was over for him. But not for Earth. The vault, below the chamber, a sealed passageway led into the depths. Dr. Nicole Tran and her team sprinted down the spiraling corridor, explosions shaking the foundations above. They reached the final door, a massive slab of metal inscribed with ancient Vorak script, and behind it, the cleansing protocol. Tran placed her EMP device on the locking mechanism. Stand back. She activated it. A ripple of electromagnetic force tore through the circuits. Sparks flew. The massive vault door groaned, then slowly slid open. Inside, the weapon pulsed with sickly green light, ancient, colossal, and seconds away from completion. Tran's eyes widened. We're out of time. She sprinted to the weapon's core, attached the override device, and triggered the shutdown. The green light flickered, dimmed, died. The cleansing protocol was silent. Earth was safe. Tran collapsed to her knees, shaking. It's done, she whispered. It's finally done. The end of Empire. Above, the Vorak fleet began shutting down. Ships halting their fire, engines cooling. Their leader was defeated. Their ultimate weapon disabled. Their empire broken. On Retribution, Laura breathed out in relief for the first time in 3 years. Admiral Cole closed her eyes. Signal all ships, she said softly. The Dominion has fallen. Humanity had survived its darkest hour. But one chapter still remained. The war was over. Now came the reckoning, and the peace Daniel Hayes had died for. Vorak Prime had fallen. The smoke of war still curled to the shattered towers of the capital, drifting upward like ghosts returning to the sky. Fires glowed in distant districts where battles had raged only hours before. The thunder of explosions had faded, replaced now by the quieter sounds of a broken empire, crumbling stone, crackling flames, distant sirens, soft, stunned silence. Human troops moved through ruins with grim purpose, gathering survivors, treating wounded, securing once feared fortresses. The Vorak soldiers who had once marched with arrogance now stood disarmed, heads bowed, their empire reduced to a memory. And at the center of it all, inside the ruined High Council chamber, humanity prepared to rewrite the future. The Treaty of Ash and Dawn. 1 month after the fall of the Dominion, representatives of every liberated species gathered in the rebuilt hall. Some had scales, others fur, others metal implants fused into bone. Dozens of races had spent centuries under Vorak rule. At the head of the human delegation stood Laura Mitchell. She wore a ceremonial uniform, not for war, but for diplomacy, with Daniel Hayes' insignia pinned over her heart. A quiet tribute to the man whose death had ignited the fire of change. The new Vorak leadership, younger, shaken, humbled, entered the chamber under guard. The former High Counselor Drethnak was not among them. He awaited trial for war crimes in a reinforced cell beneath the Capitol. Laura stepped to the podium, looking out at the gathered faces, alien, human, fearful, hopeful. When Ambassador Daniel Hayes came here, she began, he walked into this room with a simple dream, peace between our species. Many heads lowered. The memory of his execution had already spread through the galaxy like a plague. He offered friendship, Laura continued. He offered cooperation. He offered a future we could build together. Her voice tightened, not in anger, but in sorrow. And you burned that future. The hall was silent. A Vorak elder stepped forward slowly. His scales were faded, his posture heavy with shame. We were blinded by pride, he admitted, by fear, by tradition older than your species. We believed strength meant domination. Your ambassador showed us otherwise. He died with honor we never deserved to witness. He bowed his head, a gesture no Vorak had ever made to an outsider. Laura nodded. We cannot change the past, but we can choose what happens next. She pressed a button on the podium. A holographic treaty illuminated the chamber in soft light. The Treaty of Asheron Dawn, named after the day the weapon beneath Vorak Prime was shut down. It outlined the dissolution of the Vorak dominion, freedom for every species they had conquered, a new interstellar council, and reparations for centuries of oppression. But most important of all, Vorak and humans would share leadership. A galaxy once ruled by fear would now be guided by cooperation. Laura finished with words Daniel Hayes might have spoken. Peace is not a gift. It is earned, bought with sacrifice, and rebuilt with courage. The assembled leaders rose. One by one, they placed their signatures on the treaty. The war was over. The galaxy breathed again. The aftermath of heroes. Admiral Catherine Cole retired quietly. She settled in a small house by the ocean, far from battlefields, far from command centers. Every night she walked ashore, remembering the names of those who had fallen. She carried them all, but she lived long enough to see starships not for war, but for exploration, many of them designed using technologies she had pioneered. Her legacy was not the destruction she caused. It was the future she protected. The bear goes home. Sergeant Major Eric Daniels returned to Texas. He didn't speak about the war, not because it haunted him, but because no words could truly explain what it meant to hold a ridge against impossible odds or to stand eye to eye with the last ruler of a dying empire. He lived quietly, surrounded by the people he fought to save. His legend lived louder than he ever did. The pilot who trained heroes. Commander Timothy North survived the assault. He had lost half his squadron, friends he had trained with for years, but he brought back the rest. He became the lead instructor at the Interstellar Flight Academy, teaching new pilots how to fly like he did, fast, fearless, unpredictable. Don't fly where the enemy expects, he would say. Fly where their nightmares can't reach. His students became some of the best pilots the galaxy had ever seen. The scientists who rebuilt worlds. Dr. Stephanie Reyes and Dr. Nicole Tran both became central architects of the galaxy's reconstruction. Where they had once built weapons, they now built planetary shields, terraforming stations, peaceful research cruisers, and the first human Vorak collaborative laboratories. Their inventions healed wounds instead of creating them. Laura Mitchell, the ambassador of the New Age. Laura Mitchell became the first human ambassador to the former Dominion worlds. Everywhere she went, people bowed their heads, some in apology, others in gratitude, others in awe. She carried no weapons, only words, only hope, only the memory of Daniel Hayes. When she visited Earth for the first time after the treaty, she stood at Daniel's memorial, a simple statue of him standing tall, head high, just as he had faced death. She placed her hand on the cold stone. "We did it," she whispered. A breeze swept through the leaves around the statue, and for a moment, she could almost hear Daniel's voice. Earth will remember. And Earth did. The galaxy did. Because humanity had shown who they truly were. A people who fought when forced. A people who bled when needed. A people who rose when the galaxy thought they would fall. But most importantly, a people who could choose peace after war. Epilogue, a new dawn. Across the stars, ships once built for destruction now carried diplomats, scientists, explorers. Planets once crushed under the Dominion's heel now grew cities where humans and Vorak worked side by side. Children of many species learned new histories. Honest ones, where humans weren't primitives or prey, but partners. And somewhere in the heart of it all, the legacy of Daniel Hayes lived on. Not in war, not in fear, but in unity. He had been right all along. Peace was possible. It just needed to be earned. And humanity had earned it. With blood, courage, and a hope the galaxy would never forget.